He had signed checks that changed countries. He had shaken hands with presidents, rebuilt cities after floods. He put his name on a children's hospital he had never visited. People called him visionary, ruthless, untouchable. But one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, a girl with no shoes sitting alone on a cracked sidewalk stopped him cold. What he found inside her house that day, he never told a single person. Not his assistant, not his therapist, not the journalist who once called him the most powerful man of his generation. Some things are too sacred for headlines. Marcus Hale woke up that morning the same way he had woken up every morning for the last 20 years. At 4:47 a.m., before the alarm, he lay still for exactly 3 minutes, staring at the ceiling of his penthouse, running through the day ahead like a general reviewing a battlefield. Michizi London via satellite. A merger closing in Tokyo. A Senate subcommittee waiting on his testimony about labor practices in 3 countries. He showered in cold water. He always had. He believed comfort majimen soft. He dressed without looking in the mirror. He had stopped doing that around the time his second company crossed $1 billion in revenue. Something about his own reflection had begun to feel like a stranger esse face. His driver, Raymond, was waiting outside at 5:30 exactly. Raymond had worked for Marcus for 11 years and had learned 3 things: don't speak unless spoken to, don't take the highway on Tuesdays, and never under any circumstances ask how he was doing. Marcus got in the car, opened his laptop, and didn't look up for 40 minutes. It was Raymond's fault, in the end. Not in a bad way, just the kind of fault that changes everything. There was construction on the main road. A water main had burst overnight, into city blocks were completely closed off. Raymond, without thinking, turned down Garfield Street to loop around. Marcus didn't notice for the first minute. He was reading a deposition, but then the car slowed down near an intersection, and something, not a sound, not a movement, just something made him look up from his screen. He saw her. She was sitting on the curb in front of an abandoned laundromat, knees pulled to her chest, head bent forward. She looked about 8 years old. No coat, no shoes, a dress that had once been yellow but had faded into something closer to the color of dust. She wasn't crying. She wasn't holding a sign. She wasn't looking at passing cars with the practiced, heartbreaking eyes of a child who has learned to ask for things. She was drawing, in the dirt, with a stick, completely absorbed, like the rest of the world didn't exist. Marcus watched her for exactly 4 seconds. Then he said, "Raymond, stop the car." Raymond stopped. "Wait, Eddie." Marcus stepped out onto the sidewalk. The November air hit him immediately sharp, damp, the kind of cold that finds the gaps in expensive coats. He walked over slowly, not wanting to startle her. She didn't look up. He crouched though, lowering himself to her level. He looked at what she was drawing in the dirt. It was a house. Simple niceness. 4 walls, a triangle roof. A tree in front of one large tree, carefully drawn, with a full round canopy and thick roots spreading at the base. In 2 windows, side by side, framing the front of the house. The windows were shaped almost like eyes. He stared at the drawing for a moment longer than he meant to. "That's a good tree," he said finally. She looked up. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, serious. Calm in a way that felt unusual for a child, not the calm of innocence, but the calm of someone who has already seen too much and made peace with it. "Thank you," she said. "I draw it every day so I don't forget." "Forget what?" "What home looks like." Marcus sat down on the curb beside her. He had not sat on a curb since he was a child. His trousers were worth more than most people's monthly rent. He didn't think about that once. "What is your name?" he asked. "Lily." "I am Marcus." "I know," she said simply. He raised an eyebrow. "You know, your face is on a building downtown. The children's one." She tilted her head. "Are you actually nice, or did you just pay for your name to go on it?" He almost smiled. "Almost. I'm not sure yet," he said honestly. "Where is your mole, Lily?" The calm in her face shifted just slightly, just at the edges, like a candle flaming at aft. Home. She doesn't come outside much anymore. Are you hungry? She considered this seriously, as though it were a complicated question. I had crackers this morning, she said, so not super hungry, but I could eat. He took her to the diner on the corner, a place called Marta S., with yellow vinyl booths and a handwritten menu on a chalkboard. The kind of place Marcus Real hadn't been inside since before he owned anything. Willie ordered pancakes with extra syrup and a hot chocolate. She ate carefully, not frantically, which told him she had been raised with manners even inside whatever circumstances she was living. He ordered a coffee he didn't touch. Tell me about your mole, he said. Lily poured more syrup. She is sick. She used to work at the laundromat, the closed one, where you found me. But it closed last year and then she got sick and we couldn't pay the rent, so we had to leave our apartment. How long have you been living like this? Since August. She said it the way children say things that adults take years to process. Just a fact. Just August. Does anyone know? A teacher. A neighbor. MS. Parent at school knows. She gives me breakfast sometimes and doesn't make me explain. Lily looked up at him. People don't usually want the real explanation. He felt something shift in his chest. A tightening he hadn't felt in a very long time. I want it, he said. She studied him for a moment. Then she nodded slowly, as though she had just decided something important. Mama has something wrong with her blood, she said. She needs medicine that costs a lot. The clinic said she has to wait. We've been waiting since September. She paused. She sleeps most of the day now. Só me deixem toques em it like she normal. Other days I just sit with her and draw so she can hear the stick on the floor. She says the sound helps. Marcos said nothing. He let the silence hold everything she had just said. She talks about someone sometimes when she is sleeping, Lily added, almost to herself. A name. Over and over. Whose name? Lily looked at him. She says it like she is looking for someone, she said. Like a question. She paused. She says Marcos. The coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. He said it though carefully. That is a common name, he said. His voice was level. Practiced. I know, Lily said. But the way she says it sounds like it hurts. He excused himself, walked to the bathroom, stood over the sink, he gripped the edges of the basin for a long moment. He told himself it was a coincidence. He had spent decades building walls strong enough to survive anything. Boardroom ambushes, hostile takeovers, a divorce that cost him $30 million in 2 years of sleep, a fraud accusation that nearly buried his first company before it ever grew into something real. He had survived all of it by not feeling things too quickly. He told himself it was a coincidence. He walked back out. He bought her new shoes at the store 2 doors down from the diner. Boots, waterproof, the right size. She told him her size without being asked, like she had hoped for this. He bought her a coat, a proper winter coat, dark green, with a real lining. She put it on in the store and stood straighter inside it. He arranged through one call to get a doctor to make a home visit that afternoon. And when he handed her a small bag with food inside, real food, enough for several days, she held it with both hands and looked up at him. Do you want to see where we live? She asked. There was no calculation in it, no performance, just a child offering the only thing she had. Yes, he said. He didn't think about it. The word came out before his mind could catch it. They walked 4 blocks east, then turned down a narrow alley between 2 buildings, then through a rusted idle gate that Lily pushed up with her shoulder like she had done it 10,000 times. The building at the end was not a house. It had been once, maybe 40, 50 years ago. Now it was a ruin. The roof on the right side had partially collapsed. The front door was gone, replaced by a piece of plywood propped against the frame. Vines crawled up the brick. Every window was broken. But Lily walked toward Ichi without shame, without apology, with the quiet pride of someone who has decided that love for a place has nothing to do with what the place looks like. Marcus followed her. Then he stopped. He stopped because of the tree. One oak tree, standing directly in front of the building, ancient and enormous. Its roots had cracked the pavement around each for 6 feet in every direction. Its canopy spread wide enough to shadow the entire front of the ruin. Behind each, on either side of the missing door, two broken windows, side by side, like eyes. He had seen this before. Not a photograph, not a dream. He had drawn it when he was 7 years old, on the back of a brown paper grocery bag, using a crayon someone had left on a table at a shelter 3 states away. On the last night he remembered feeling safe before everything came apartamento. He had drawn it because his mother had described it to him. Over and over, years before things got bad, before the system swallowed them both. She used to tell him about the house she had grown up in, the big tree, the 2 windows like eyes, the way the roots cracked the sidewalk. She called Ichi home. She said someday they would find their way back to Ichi. He had stopped believing her before he was 8. By the time he was 9, he was the first of her foster homes. By 10, he had decided that no one was coming back for him. By 20, he had turned that decision into fuel for everything he built. He had never looked for her. He had been too afraid of what he might find. Are you okay? Lily was looking up at him. He couldn't speak. The tree scares some people, she said, because it is so big. But I like it. Mama says it has been 80 longer than anyone can remember. She says it means the house is still alive even if it looks broken. Marcus pressed one hand flat against the bark of the tree. It was solid, real, rougher than he expected. Can I go? He asked. His voice didn't sound like his own. Of course, Lily said. I'll show you. She moved the plywood aside and let him in. The inside was dim. The night pushed through the broken windows. The floor was uneven, cracked concrete under his feet, covered in places with old blankets and cardboard. In the corner, someone had managed to hang a piece of fabric across a doorway to create something like a room. Lily let him to reach. She pulled the fabric aside gently. Mama, she said softly. Someone said, someone nice. The woman on the mattress on the floor was lying on her side, facing the wall. She was thin, terribly thin. Her hair, once dark, was streaked through with gray and spread across the folded coat she used as a pillow. Her breathing was slow and shallow but steady. She is sleeping, Lily whispered. But she wakes up sometimes in the afternoons. You can wait if you want. Marcus didn't wait. He stepped forward slowly, around the mattress, until he could see her face. The world stopped. Everything, every sound, every thought, every carefully constructed certainty just stopped. He knew her face. Not just the way you know someone you've seen before. The way you know something that was built into you before you had words for it. The way you know the smell of rain before you understand weather. The way your body recognizes something your mind has spent decades trying to forget. The shape of her jaw, the small upward curve at the end of her nose, the scar above her left eyebrow, a small crescent scar from a fall when he was 5 years old and she had picked him up from the pavement and held his face in her hands and said, You he okay? If got you. If got you. He had not heard those words in 44 years. He had rebuilt himself completely around the silence where they used to be. His knees hit the floor before he decided to kneel. He wasn't conscious of it. His body simply gave way the way structures give way when the thing holding them up is suddenly, finally removed. He pressed his forehead against her hand. Her thin, cold hand, lying up on the mattress like a question that had been waiting a very long time for its answer. Mama, he whispered. He had not said that word out loud since he was a child. It didn't sound like a word at all. It sounded like the oldest sound a human being can make. Behind him, Lily stood very still. She didn't understand what was happening, but she understood that something enormous had just broken up that it wasn't bad. It was the kind of breaking that lets light. The woman on the mattress stirred. Slowly, painfully. The way people marvel when simply waking up costs something. Then she turned her head. She opened her eyes. She saw him. For a long moment, she said nothing. She looked at his face the way you look at something you have dreamed about for so long that seeing it real becomes almost impossible to believe. Her lips moved. No sound at first. Then barely a whisper, barely a breath. Marcos. Not a question, just his name, said Nike on arrival. Nike door finally opening after a very long winter. He was 51 years old. He had more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes. He had built things that would outlast him by centuries. None of each had ever made him feel like a person the way that one whispered word did. He held her hand, both of his didn't let go. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor beside them, like she had somehow known all along that this moment was coming, like her whole small life had been quietly, patiently arranging itself toward this single afternoon. She didn't say anything. She just took out her stick and drew in the dust on the floor. A house, a tree, 2 windows like eyes. In this time for the first time she drew 2 figures standing in front of it. The ambulance came 20 minutes later. Then the doctors, then the treatments that should have started months ago, now fast-tracked by a single phone call from a man whose name was on hospital wing. His mother recovered slowly, then steadily, then fully, over the course of the following year. A house that Marcos bought, on a quiet street with a garden, where Lily had her own room, her own window, and filled the walls with drawings. He visited every Sunday. He was always on time. He had spent 19 years unable to cry, believing each was strength. He understood now that each had only ever been distance. Distance, each turns out, can be crossed. Even after 44 years. Even when you've stopped believing each is possible. Even when all you have left is a child drawing a house in the dirt, the courage to stop and look.